Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Are You with the Wall? I woke up with a gnarly sore throat, so I'm really excited about that. I'm not quite sure what's going on. You want to know what I think it is? I'm pretty sure anytime I do physical activity that pushes me past my limits. For example, a couple weeks ago did technically I signed up for a HIIT yoga class. Now, if you don't know what HIIT is, it's HIIT. It's basically like a more intense version of something, a little bit more movement. So it would just be more of an intense yoga class. Well, I get there, and it's not the instructor that I had signed up for. And he's like, oh, so-and-so is out of town, so I'll be your instructor today. However, I don't do yoga, so this will be more like HIIT, but I'll try to incorporate some yoga. That man did not do any yoga. We did one downward dog pose at the very end, and I was doing fucking burpees. If there's one thing about me, it's that I don't do burpees. And I was doing burpees on a Wednesday evening. So, literally the next day, I felt sick. Not my tummy hurts. No. Well, I was really sore. And honest to God, I might have convinced myself I was sick, but I felt extremely sick because I was super, super achy, and I was weak, and originally I thought it was just because of the workout class, but I don't think that it was. And then, I was taking medicine, and then I felt better. So, but I'm not quite sure what's going on, because yesterday I went for a run, which I should do more often, but I don't. I exerted some force. There was some inertia going on there, and I didn't go that hard, but I pushed myself, and now I have a fucking sore throat. So what better way to cure a sore throat than to talk for 50 minutes? So, let's unpack some things today, shall we? As you could tell from the title, we're kind of doing a pros and cons today, but I thought it'd be more fun to kind of format it in a kind of a philosophical situation. So today we're discussing, is the internet more harmful or helpful? Now, this is quite the topic, because I feel like there is a immense amount of research done on this that I've done a little bit. I've also had my fair share of being on the internet. I'm 22, going on 23 soon, and which so I have a good grasp on how the internet affects me individually, my friends and family, and just society in general. And so I want to dive into it. I'm going to break it up into kind of pros and cons, but more how the internet is helpful and then how it's harmful. And then we can kind of discuss a little bit on what we're feeling by the end of this list, because it is really hard to kind of say if one thing is one singular thing. So it's hard to say if something as massive as the internet is harmful or is helpful, because from my list that I have in front of me, it is a very extensive list. So let's just get into it, and then we can kind of discuss on what we're feeling. So this includes the actual internet, like Google and Bing if you're fucking using Bing, I don't know, and social media platforms, like that thing. This doesn't really tap into technology per se, more like, you know, there's a difference in my head between technology and internet, because technology kind of goes into the technology that's used in hospitals. That doesn't, I don't think, really necessarily use internet, but I guess the internet could have been used to develop it or whatever, but that's kind of a separate thing in my head. So, the first thing that I found the internet is helpful in regard to is it connects you with people from literally everywhere. I could get in contact with someone who is exactly across the globe from me right now if I could figure it out. And that's the beautiful thing, is because you can figure out those things. Like, those are things that are within your grasp. And it's really cool because you get to see other people's cultures, and you get to see how they live. And now, pre-internet, you could learn about these things through books, but there's something about being able to see the way someone lives in real time and be able to potentially contact them about it and talk to them about it and learn about it in real time is a completely different thing. And I think it's cooler than just being able to read it in a book that might be dated 25 years or whatever, because I think traditions and culture is an ever-growing thing, and being able to experience that in real time is so much more helpful than if you were reading it from a book. Like I said, you could virtually meet people that live thousands of miles away from you. We have Zoom, okay? Zoom is the internet. You have to use your internet to use Zoom. And you could, like, there's panels that people will have that someone will be in, like, Oklahoma and someone else will be in Hong Kong. And they're, like, talking virtually in the same room. And it's, like, the coolest thing ever, because you get to share such different views and perspectives on a variety of things. And it's all just in, like, you're in the same room, but you're still in the comfort of your own home or your office or whatever. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And it gives people a different perspective than if we didn't have the internet. And, I mean, I'll get into it later, but it could also, this point could also be considered harmful, but I'll get into that later. The internet is also essentially just a massive database, which can overall help society and people in general. I think, pre-internet, there was databases which are formerly known as, like, atlases and science books, basically. And they're helpful, but the thing about the internet being helpful in regard to a database is that it's live. People are constantly uploading shit. People are constantly researching things, and it can be so much more accessible than if we didn't have the internet. And this kind of segues into my next point about getting information so quickly, which can also be considered kind of a con, but again, we'll get into it later. Having this giant database can expand your knowledge and also other people's knowledge who are doing the researching. Because I know in my time of doing my own research on things while I was in school, I had to use other people's research to do my own research and to create hypotheses and things of that nature. And so using other people's research for your own research and as primary and secondary data, that helps further even more research. So it's just like a never-ending spiral of more and more research and figuring out things. And that is a essentially helpful thing, especially in the scientific world, I'd argue. Now, there's also an extensive amount of resources for if you want to figure out what's wrong with you physically. My tummy hurts and my left foot is numb. I could Google that and maybe get something. Well, that could also be a little dangerous because you don't want to become a hypochondriac, which is where you're just constantly self-diagnosing yourself. But, maybe more of a less extreme example would be if what medicine to take whenever blank is doing blank. Like, I never know. I'm probably after this, I'm going to Google or text my mom what medicine to take when I have a sore throat, because I never know if it's Motrin, aspirin, Tylenol, ibuprofen. I never fucking know. I never know. So, because apparently one works better than the other, but you could take both at the same time. But I also don't know if Motrin is the same thing as this and this is different than that. That's where the internet becomes extremely helpful for people like me who don't know what medicine is what. It's really great. You also have access to resources for finding like the nearest therapist office if that's the route you want to go. If you're kind of looking into, you've been mentally struggling for a little bit and you want to kind of check in, or if you have been doing well but you just want someone to talk to, you could go to easily look up a therapist. And furthermore, the internet also provides reviews on things. Just like these simple little things that make a world of a difference. So you get reviews on doctors. You also can get reviews on products or fucking restaurants. It's like this endless list of things that you have access to, which can also be extremely dangerous. And you get to see what other people are thinking about it. And you get to take their perspectives on, like, say, a rare beauty blush. You get to see what they're thinking about it. And you're like, you want to know what? Do I want to spend over $20 for a blush? Some people are saying it's worth it. Some people aren't. So I think that's a really cool thing. It's not like, this massive thing, but it is at the end of the day helpful. Similarly, you get information. The internet helps you get information to a massive group of people very quickly. That's one of the first things I learned in my social media courses while I was in college, is that social media is the best way to get information out to people. Now, once again, I'll discuss this later, but that can also be harmful. I think that having this access to this much information is in general helpful, but we'll get into that later. We'll unpack that in a bit. But for example, getting a bunch of information out to people in a dire emergency. For example, when we were at the peak of the pandemic, or even in the beginning of the pandemic, and we needed to figure out what the hell was going on. We didn't know, like, we heard all of these things, and there was, people were saying this, people were saying that, but we didn't know what our government was doing about this, what's going on with travel restrictions, this and this and this and this. And, once we eventually figured out the next move on things, and as we progressed, throughout the pandemic, we were able to get this information so quickly, which arguably helped with the progression of getting everyone back to normalcy. Letting people know, hey, this is, in the morning you get a tweet, or in the morning you open up your email and you see, oh, okay, so if you're vaccinated, you could, go out in public without a mask, or just split second, the moment you wake up, you could figure out this new information that is very crucial in this case, that is being sent out to millions of people. And I think that's a extremely helpful thing, especially in that regard. Now, getting information across to a large amount of people quickly in other regards can be definitely harmful, but we'll discuss that in a bit. Having access to the internet and to social media is it allows for inspiration from other people and to bounce off others' ideas. I'd argue that it influences creativity, but it also can definitely make it kind of stagnant. But again, that's like a completely different discussion that I don't even want to get into right now. Just like creativity in the internet is just like a whole different thing that I can't really think about that right now, because this is our focus. But you could see what other people are doing, and it kind of inspires trends, and you're like, okay, I like this, but I want to maybe tweak this a little bit. And especially with like fashion or music, it's like you're like, okay, I like that idea, but I'm gonna kind of maneuver it into my lifestyle, and then I'm gonna show it, and then someone else sees your idea, and then they're like, okay, I like this, but I'm gonna just tweak this part a little bit. And this can go for like anything. It doesn't have to just go for fashion or for music. It could go for like a magnitude of things. Another thing, my personal favorite about the internet, is that you can learn anything on the internet. Like, you can learn and teach yourself stuff so incredibly easy. It's almost frightening how easy it is to learn things. For example, when I was about 10 or 11 years old, I wanted to play the guitar because I wanted to be just like Taylor Swift. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, a global superstar per se. And let me tell you, whenever I finally came to terms that that's just not going to happen, it was, oh God, that was like my first time sneezing on the podcast. Sorry, guys. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, sorry. There's just another little fucking fly in here. When isn't there a little fly in here? As I was saying, it's detrimental to my mental health whenever I realize, I'm not going to be a 10-time Grammy-winning artist. But I've come to terms with it now. Anywho, I wanted to be like Taylor Swift. And I got a guitar because previously I was using my elementary school violin as a guitar. And one day I was at Target with my mom, and I was on my knees begging, Mom, please, I need this guitar, please. And so that day I got my first guitar. So thank you, Mother. Because now I still play it. And what I'm trying to get at with this anecdote is that I taught myself how to play guitar just by going on YouTube. I took guitar lessons for a little bit. The man was really creepy. I was really young. He was at like the prime pedo age where it's like he's like 39, 38. I don't know if that's like prime pedo, but in my book it is. Because they're not, they're still young, so they can be trustworthy, but like they're getting a little old where they're like getting a little creepy. It's just like that age. So this dude, like it was a guitar lesson studio. There was multiple teachers, but like each teacher had their own little room. And when I say little room, I mean little room. Like this was a closet, basically. This was a walk-in closet. And sometimes, most of the time, he would leave the door open. Sometimes he wouldn't. And one day, my mom was like, I hope he doesn't, close the door while you're in there. And I was like, why? And she was like, well, does he ever touch you? And I'm like a little kid, and I'm like, fuck, I want to get out of here. I soon after quit because I got scared he was going to touch me. I don't think that he ever did, but I also have blocked out a large portion of my life. So I don't really know. But I've gotten really sidetracked. I'm so sorry. Basically, quit that, and I continued to learn on the internet guitar. And it's one of my favorite things. And I still continue to learn piano on YouTube. And it's great, I think. And so this little gnat, if it goes in my mouth, a war will ensue. I'm so serious. You can also learn languages and scientific theories. You know how many videos I've watched on Vsauce where I learn new shit? It's awesome. And it's for free. I get to watch it for free. I get to learn shit for free. And you want to know what? I'd argue that half of the degrees that are offered in colleges can be learned through YouTube and maybe some paid lessons that are 99% cheaper than college. Now you might be asking, why didn't you just do that then, Lily? Because society teaches you that if you don't go to college and get a degree, then you're probably going to be really unsuccessful. But that's another conversation. Actually, that's pretty good. Does college make you successful? You want to know what? I'm going to write that down. Next. It creates a sense of community, especially for extremely niche groups. I don't know why, but the first group that comes to my mind is like the My Little Pony community. The bronies, as they've coined the term, which are basically just grown men who love My Little Pony. That's a thing. I learned that from Brittany Broski and Sarah Shower's old podcast. So if you want to learn about that, go ahead and give that a quick search. Look, you can learn shit so easily. But it also kind of creates a community for non-niche groups. For example, those who struggle with mental health. There's so many people that struggle with their mental health that it's like not even a niche thing, because it's the internet has created it to be like, it's basically normalized it because it used to be a taboo thing. It does create a community and kind of normalizes it, and also, makes you feel like you're not alone, basically. Even though the internet can sometimes be an extremely isolating experience, depending on how you're kind of using it. And lastly, just a little random one that I thought of was that it kind of helps with regulating crime, and mainly helping kind of the government with terroristic things. And this isn't that fun of a point, but I hate to end on it, but that's kind of where I'm at. It's security purposes, but then again, it's also kind of a con because, you have your little FBI agent built into your phone, listening to you, watching you. So once again, almost all of those bullet points I just listed could arguably also be a con. And to segue into that, we're going to get into the cons now on how the internet is harmful. The first point I mentioned, it connects you with people from everywhere. Could be a con, or it could be a pro, but it is definitely also a con. This opens up a whole portal of catfishing, tracking locations, which leads into like maybe stalking, harassment, bullying. Also can segue into cybercrime, theft, fraud, identity theft. Like, it's a beautiful thing being able to connect with anyone from anywhere, but it also opens up such an incredibly dangerous chapter in the book of the internet. Because I've been catfished before. Whenever I was like a little bit younger. And which is like crazy. Like, why is someone my age catfishing me when we were like in fucking 6th grade or something? It's very scary because the internet has become such a open market for finding just about anything about someone. There is basically no privacy if you have ever created any account on the internet. You can find out where people live. You can find out their home address, their phone number. There's like no safety regulations really. You can have your Instagram account private. You can have your Twitter account private. Yes, that does help with privacy, but when you're creating other accounts for online shopping, websites, and putting in your address and your name and your phone number, that all gets saved somewhere. And like, there's data leaks and password leaks. Like, something's always leaking on the internet. And it might be my passwords that I've created, however many moons ago that I still use. And they tell me every time, you might want to change your password. It's been in like a data leak. And I say, okay, but no thanks. For just like social media stuff. But there's just always some leaking on the internet. Furthermore, stalking is a really big thing. I know I don't really feel like getting into this because it's such like a heavy topic, but it is one of the most harmful parts about the internet is how easily it can be to stalk someone virtually, and then it can get into like physically stalking them. I mean, like, have you ever seen the show You? I feel like that's, obviously it's dramatized, but like that's not too far off of things that happen in real life, I feel like. You get viruses on your computers from the internet, and you're downloading random shit because you want to download Taylor Swift's unreleased music, and you end up getting some kind of virus on your computer that tracks your every move and knows where you live, and someone in another country is like watching you through your camera. Things like that. I've also just kind of accepted it, unfortunately. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but I think it's just like, yeah, someone might be watching me through my camera right now on my computer, but they might not be. I don't really know. Another terrible thing about the internet that is very harmful is the bias that's on the internet and the algorithm. Now, as someone who has a degree in journalism, I strongly encourage all of you to never believe anything on the internet unless you do some pretty heavy research, look at multiple sources, and like just don't trust the first thing you believe or the first thing you see about something, about anything. This doesn't even mean like, this could just go for you, because here's the thing. People could post whatever the fuck they want on the internet, basically. they can, give or take. And that leaves a lot of room for gullible people like I sometimes to be persuaded. And let me tell you, people will just post random shit. Oh, NASA just found a meteor coming barreling towards Earth, projected to collide in 2024. And it's like, people just like take a picture from Google, slap some text on top of it, and like post it on something, and it'll be like a meme page that posted it. 99% of the time I'm gonna be like, holy shit, but then I'm not even gonna really think about it. Now, if that's something that actually scares you, then I would probably go on to nasa.gov or whatever and figure out what's going on with that, if it's true or not. But that's just a little example. Other things that, are maybe a little bit more harmful to society as a whole can be information about, things in the political world and the science world and the environmental world. Information can get extremely skewed. That also brings me to a similar point. The algorithm is catered to you. So, if you don't know what an algorithm is, it's basically this online, we'll just call it a person, this online person that creates or kind of categorizes and organizes information based on your previous activity. So, for example, I'll use my Instagram page. I have not seen a single picture from someone I went to high school with in a very long time on my Instagram feed, because most of the things that I am looking at on my Instagram are Instagram reels of Taylor Swift and cats. And I don't know how to fix it. Because it's like, okay, they get the fucking point. Like, I understand, but like, I also kind of want to see some other things on my Instagram feed. Now, another example could be on your Twitter page. The first thing that you see on your Twitter when you go onto the Explore page is a page called For You. And this is based on things that you have liked, that you typically click on, that are also kind of popular, like popular topics. So typically, my first top three things on my Twitter page typically have something to do with Taylor Swift, pop culture, maybe something political, but not as of recent, that kind of sway to my political views. I'm not seeing, the opposing political party. I'm not seeing their views on my Twitter, because the algorithm knows that that's not what I believe in. And so it kind of takes away all their opinions and their point of views and their beliefs. And I'm just fed things that I like. Because why would we want to see things that we don't like on the internet? And the algorithm knows that. So they're just going to keep feeding me things that make me happy, things that I like, topics that I'm passionate about. And they know that. They have a folder for each of us on things that we like and things that we don't like. So there's this little folder for me in the algorithm where it's like, okay, she likes A, B, C, D, and E, and doesn't like A, B, C, D, E, F. So, and the algorithm says, okay, well, let's hide basically everything at surface level that she hates, and let's make sure she sees all the stuff that she likes. If she wants to see the stuff that she hates, she could look at it. She could Google it. She could look it up in the search bar. But, to make it an easy and enjoyable experience on Twitter, for example, we're just going to show her all of the things that she likes and that she agrees with. because we want it to be an enjoyable experience. And this isn't a theoretical thing. I have part of my degree is social media. So I learned the ins, the outs, and basically the strategy behind all of it. I know how it works. I know it's a thing. And that can be incredibly harmful. Having your information skewed and portrayed in a way that, like, that's the information you're seeing, so that's what's going on. It is scary, and it can be incredibly harmful for just society in general. If we're only seeing things that appeal to us, appeal to our beliefs and our interests, I'd argue that has created an incredible divide, at least in the US. I mean, because there was such huge talk about the 2020 election about, censorship. And I think a lot of people didn't really understand what the First Amendment was, and how community guidelines work, and the difference between, like, the government censorship and private companies censoring things. But that's a different conversation. Basically, you can only, like, private companies like Instagram, Twitter, Meta, fucking Reddit, whatever, can delete your shit. And because when you first sign up, you basically sign away your rights because they're a private company and they can do whatever they want. Now, if the government is censoring your shit, that could be an infringement. But there's also basically, like, little rules, and, like, there are things that are included in free speech and things that aren't included in free speech, like hate speech and child pornography, things like that. Unless you're on some kind of scientific or academic peer-reviewed journal article, your information is probably biased, because it's incredibly hard to create unbiased content. I have had so many courses where I have had discussions about bias, and a lot of my journalism classes were, make sure you're just giving the information and not creating a bias, and especially if you're, like, a reporter. But it's incredibly difficult. There are a couple news outlets out there, like NPR, that are pretty neutral in general, that kind of just feed you the actual facts and no opinions. But some could argue that there are still, there's still a bias. I think that's kind of all I had for that. Basically, just in a nutshell, another thing harmful about the internet is that the information is catered to you, and information can be hidden from you. So just, go on the internet and do research with caution. Because one of my, the helpful things was being able to do your own research on things. It's just important. Even Google has an algorithm. Whenever we did this in class, whenever I search up, like, COVID, and another guy searches up COVID, the first page is going to be different for everyone. Now, if you're on, like, a private browser, that might be different because they can't track cookies, which are basically things that, like, track your interests and whatnot. That's why it's like every time you go on a page, it's like, do you accept all cookies? And it's because it just, like, basically tracks your data. Which is so great, so fun. But yeah, I always accept the cookies. Like, yeah, I'll take some cookies. And yeah, that's that point. Long-winded way of saying, don't believe everything you see on the internet. Next up is constant exposure to other people and their appearances. This kind of goes hand in hand with, like, the mental health conversation. Influencers and expectations, and it's all extremely harmful. I know for me personally, as of late, it's been pretty hard being on social media, and constantly comparing myself, and I had to kind of do a redo of who I'm following on Instagram to kind of unfollow people who are maybe a little too perfect, aren't, showing their real self and their real bodies and whatnot, because constantly looking at people who always look perfect or always kind of posing and flexing their stomach and their muscles, it all seems real because that's how they look like all the time. But we've just become accustomed to like not seeing our real bodies on the internet because it's just not what it has been accepted in society. I want to go back to the time in Roman times where like little fat rolls were just absolutely worshipped. And I know that it was a matter of, if you have rolls, that's why it was always in statues. It's because it was basically like a statement of wealth, because you had enough money to buy enough food to get like that. Completely different now. But I want to get back to that. Can we get back to that and just like normalize, having like some fat on you? Can we normalize that a little bit? Maybe? I don't know. Just a hot take. Having this constant exposure is just detrimental to people's mental health. And while I'd made the point earlier that the internet is great for seeing other people's ideas and the way they're dressing and then taking that and like maybe mimicking it or bouncing off of that and changing it up a little bit. Yes, helpful, great stuff. However, if you're like constantly seeing someone who in your mind you have set on this pedestal, it's like you want to be them so bad, but for whatever reason you just can't get there, whether that be financially or, newsflash, you can't be like anybody else. You're you, babe. That's it. Similarly, seeing everyone doing everything basically, and sharing things that they've bought and things that they're wearing has created almost an impressively harmful way of life in terms of consumerism. The internet, I would argue, I'm going to argue something, okay? I would argue that the internet is one of the leading factors of why there is so much environmental damages in terms of like consumerism and products and landfills. I would argue that it's basically the internet's fault for the massive landfills on this earth. Because, and hear me out, TikTok and Instagram have become a hub for finding what's hot, what's new, and Amazon. Okay, whole different conversation. Like trends happen so quickly that it's like, oh my god, I saw this Stanley Cup. Everyone has these Stanley Cups. I want one. Everyone's saying that they're so good. Oh my god, I need one. Oh my god, they come in such cute colors. Oh my gosh, I love this. Alex Earl has them. Oh my god, so-and-so has them. Like, so it must be good because I've put her on this pedestal that just like makes her better than everyone. And I admire her. You can admire people, but you can also have your own morals and stances on things. Just a hot take. So yeah, and don't even get me started on Shein and fast fashion. That's we'll have an episode about that. It's just so easy to order anything at any time from anywhere. You could be on your toilet and place an order on Amazon for something that you don't really need. I think that, I mean, I have seen lately this, like, what's it called? De-influencing. Love that. Where people kind of talk about products that have been hyped and that you're likely to buy because it's trending. And kind of being like, you want to know what? It's like, they weren't that great. Like, the people who are just honest because they fell for the trend. And then they were like, it didn't really hit that great. And also, I saw a video recently on how this one blush that was like a highlighter, like a purple blush, that ideally you're probably, if you buy a whole purple blush that looks pretty on someone's skin tone, you buy it and you're like, okay, yeah, this is cool. A month later, you're like, you never touch it again. And this person was kind of explaining, like, okay, do you have a purple eyeshadow? And do you have a shimmery eyeshadow? Okay, well, you could just mix those two together and then use that and see if you like it. And just kind of like, instead of buying a whole new one, you could just get a little creative with it. That way you're not buying more products that you're just going to end up wasting and money that ends up going to waste. So that's one of my recent favorite trends going on, is just de-influencing. Because it's so easy to just get sucked into it. You see someone using something and you're like, that's cool, because brands have become so aware that we are suckers for branding. If something comes in a cute package, we are going to eat it up. And I am included in that we. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not like, that I'm above everyone and that I've never fell into a trend. My God, have I fallen into a trend. My God. But I'm trying to become more aware about it. And, you know, before I buy things, do I already have something that's similar to this? What can I use this for? Am I going to use this in a year from now? Will it last me a year from now? Things like that. So just beware about, you know, what you're buying, if it's actually worth it, or if you're just excited about it, because there is this instant gratification you get whenever you buy something, especially whenever it's trendy. And then it doesn't help that Amazon will deliver something to you in 2 days. So it's just like instant gratification. It's awesome, but it's also can be extremely harmful for our poor little planet that is on its last leg. So just, you know, rethink a couple things before you buy something on Shein or Amazon or whatever. I also mentioned how these trends can kind of it kind of like creates a separation between people who can't afford to keep up with these really, really fast trends and people who can't. Even though this still kind of happened like before internet, where there were trends, but now that the trend cycle is like impossible to keep up with, it's kind of like, oh, you can spend $300 on an Amazon order to buy all of these new things that everyone's talking about on TikTok. Oh, okay, so you have kind of like this, like, oh, you have money, you know, kind of thing. But I don't feel like digging into that because that's just like a whole other thing. But next, the internet is harmful for our attention span, and I can say that with experience. My God, if you have listened to this episode thus far, you know how fucking distracted I get by a little fucking fly. And also, our need for speed has increased. Like I was mentioning with Amazon deliveries and internet speed, like things need to be like go, 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 go. I want it in an instant. I want it now. Because we always need more. We need that gratification from placing an order, and we need it now. Because there is something magical about getting a package. I won't lie. I love getting mail. I love it. I really do. But sometimes I have to wait like 2 weeks for a package, and it hurts my heart. But it's just the reality of it. Like, not everything can come the next day at my doorstep, Lily. And for one of my last points, it is my last point. You can see anything on the internet. Like anything. Have you heard of the dark web? It's really, really harmful. At such a young age, I was seeing things that I should not have seen till I was 20. When I was in third grade, I was seeing things that I should not have even known existed. And that's no one's fault, because it's not like, I mean, it wasn't even, I don't feel like getting into that story, but it's just so easy to see anything. Because there's so much content on the internet where it's really hard to regulate what's on there and what isn't, especially whenever you dive into Reddit and how things can kind of be hidden and the dark web. Like, I have been in a room with people in like middle school, high school. I think it was middle school when I don't know what year it was, when Osama bin Laden was killed. I'm pretty sure I was in a room of people, I think it was mainly just guys around the phone, who were, I don't know if it was Osama bin Laden, but what I'm trying to get at is that they were watching a video of someone getting like beheaded, basically, or shot up or whatever. Like, now, trigger warning, like school shootings. There are videos of that on the internet, of it happening in real time. Like, you can see anything. Now, I feel like since I've been younger, it's kind of gotten maybe a little bit better in terms of like being able to restrict things. Like YouTube has a kids mode, and even like TVs have kids modes and stuff like that. And so it's definitely, I think, maybe gotten better, but I think it also could have gotten worse, because now the internet is just like, you can easily sneak past things. Like, kids at such a young age have become incredibly competent in the tech world that it's like a little scary. If they really put their mind to it, they can see anything they want, which is extremely scary, and like another reason I don't want to have kids. So what do we think? Is the internet more harmful or helpful? It's really hard to say, but my initial reaction is going to say harmful, because I do really think that society might be better without it, for a lot of reasons, in terms of mental health, in terms of consumerism, but all of those have another side to it. The internet has this giant community of normalizing mental health and having resources. And then another side to it is consumerism allows for the growth of the economy, and you can advertise small businesses and things of that nature that you normally wouldn't find if we didn't have the internet. So I don't want to say what is what, but I definitely think that there are some pretty harmful things about the internet that kind of are sitting heavy with me, that are making me lean towards that. But I don't want to say that's more harmful than it is helpful, because there are a lot of really great things about the internet and social media. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to follow the pod on Instagram, it's at Argue with the Wall, but the with is a W. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You could follow whatever you're listening on right now, and rate it if you really feel like it. And stay safe out there on the internet. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.